Have you ever walked out of a conversation feeling invisible, like no one really heard you? Today, we are diving into why feeling seen in your relationships and conversations isn't just a nice to have, but an essential. I'll share what it really means to be seen, why it matters, and how you can start showing up so fully that others can't help but will notice. So, let's get right into it today. I want to start this episode today with a quote from Timothy Keller, who wrote a book, The Meaning of Marriage, Facing the Complexities of Commitment with the Wisdom of God. And I found this quote and it truly resonated. And I think it really goes into the meat of our podcast today. And the quote goes, "To be loved but not known is comforting but superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved is, well, a lot like being loved by God. It is what we need more than anything." And today, our podcast episode, the thing that we're going to talk today about is how to feel more seen in relationships and why it starts with you. So I feel like we all have come across, and I'm sure you have plenty of times because I know I have, been in relationships or in conversations where you have a conversation with someone. They are nodding, they are responding in a way, maybe even saying a few right words. And after the conversation, you walk away feeling kind of strangely empty. Like it feels like something didn't land, like they heard you, but kind of they didn't really see you. And that feeling that I call feeling unseen or being unseen is truly the most painful emotional experiences I had, and I'm sure you had as well. And most people don't even realize how much it shapes the way they show up in all our relationships. And today I want to talk about how to feel more seen in conversations, in relationships, and what you can practice to feel more seen and more loved in that way. It's funny because right now I see my sister calling me on WhatsApp and she completely pulled me out of from this episode. But don't worry, I have not lost my thread. I was just like, for a second, like, should I pause record on my podcast or talk to her, or should I continue talking to you? But sorry, I'm back at it. I'll stick with you. You are more important because I want you to I want us to have this conversation about how to feel more seen, because I think that is very, very important right now. I will call my sister later. That's not a problem. Then I also want to go with you a bit deeper than this usual advice, because there is advice out there. It's like, yeah, you have to validate yourself and all those stuff, because this isn't just about communication tips. It's just also about understanding what's actually happening inside of you, inside of me, when we crave being seen, and why sometimes, you still feel invisible, even when people are around you who care about you. Because I can just talk about my marriage with my husband, because that is the most perfect example for me. Also, why I'm recording this episode overall is because in my marriage to my husband, I clearly know when I don't feel seen, and I always know what I have to do in order to feel seen. But just today, when I was thinking about a personal story that I can share with you about feeling seen or not feeling seen, or how we can grant these other people, because that is such a gift. It is the biggest gift to make someone feel seen. And I think if you were to ask me what my biggest strengths are in my coaching, Because it's not like that I am the best coach out there. I don't have the best advice out there. Sometimes, I'm sitting with my clients and I'm listening to them and I'm seeing them in what's present for them. So when I was thinking about my strength as a coach, because it's healthy to think, what are my strengths, what I'm really good at. For me, it is listening with patience and not needing to fix anything in them. And I know that this is such a magic. And I also know I don't have endless capacity for that, obviously, because sometimes, of course, I want to jump into fixing something for my client because I can clearly see it. Yet, I also at the same time know that my clients have all these intelligences within themselves to know what's going to help them to get out of being stuck or, whatever challenge or issues they have. And those two things are so important as a coach, like not fixing your client, not jumping in prematurely, and really listening to them, really seeing them in their fullest emotional expression. And I always know that once they felt truly seen in a very safe environment, because I'm not judging them, I'm not fixing them, I'm not needing to get in there, rescue them. I don't need them to be different. I don't have that fear that, oh my God, now 90 minutes passed and, did we come to somewhere? Did this client get a result out of it? I don't have that need anymore, or this urge that I had in the beginning days of my coaching, where I wanted to fix and wanted to make sure that everyone leaves with the biggest aha moments. Everything is fixed, everything is solved. And that is actually not the most useful thing for my clients, because they have the solutions in themselves, or they might even have partners, friends, family members that can help them come to that conclusion very often. But what we don't receive often is the feeling of being really, truly seen. To be really feeling the presence of someone, the full focus and attention from someone, and not having to think like, are they judging me? Do I need to kind of now, did I talk too much or too long about myself? Like, all this crap needs to go and will go once the person really feels seen by you. And today it's more about, I wanted to explain how you can feel to make yourself more seen. And obviously, what is the great thing about this today is that obviously you can take that on and see where in your relationships with the most loved people you can actually make more efforts to make them more seen. So coming back to where I actually started out from today, before I go into what does it mean? What does it actually mean to feeling seen? Before I jump into a bit of an explanation definition here, because I know that for some of you, this is very abstract. Because for me, very long time, I was like, yeah, feeling seen, feeling heard. But what does that mean? What does it really mean? So I put that aside for a moment and just go into the story today. And it's a brief story anyway. So I wanted to somehow, like, God or the universe just gifted me with this topic, because I was like, I have a day off today. It's a public holiday in the US and I have time to record a podcast uninterrupted. And I was like, before I go to Pilates, I want to go to Pilates with having recorded a podcast. And what is the episode today? Because kind of like, I not really like planned for ages before I like on a topic. That just comes into kind of like, it's sent to me in a way. So, and then I had this topic of feeling seen, because that is what 99% of my clients struggle and why they come to me. And so I was like, okay, there are so many moments where I didn't feel seen, but I was then reflecting on, what is it that I don't see in my husband and haven't acknowledged in him for a while? So I made it kind of the other way around. From my husband's perspective, how can I make him feel more seen? So I can share this story now or this example in this podcast. So it's a personal thing, a personal story, and also very like current, right? It's not something that happened a week ago, a month ago. It's just today, just half an hour ago. So I'll just bring in a little bit of story. So bear with me for the context. So we live in Miami Beach, and my husband works half an hour away, so more inland. So Miami Beach is an island, and inland means proper Miami. And then Miami is huge. It has a lot of other counties or other like smaller cities next to it. So everything is considered Miami, but then there are like different kind of smaller cities or suburban areas. And so the hospital is half an hour away if the traffic isn't too bad, obviously, and during the week. So 30 minutes. And where we live is absolutely gorgeous. If you follow me on Instagram on my stories, you know how my view is. So if I describe it to you, if you haven't yet seen it, it's like our apartment overlooks the Bay Area, which means you can see the cruise ships, you can see downtown Miami. It's very beautiful at night. You see all these beautiful colors and the skyscrapers, and you see when you look outside of the window, which I currently do, is you see boats, you see endless water, turquoise water, like deep turquoise water. It's just beautiful, and a lot of sky. So it's a very grounding view, even though you can see the city behind, but you can also see the islands, and the islands have a lot of palm trees, and those islands are inhabited by the rich and the wealthy, by the millionaires and billionaires. You see a lot of yachts and very big boats by people who have a lot of money. So this is a lot of energy. It's a lot of grounding energy, and it's an energy of to see what we can all kind of tap into, or what's possible for some people, and maybe you, if you want to manifest a big yacht. So, and in order for us to have that, my husband has to drive half an hour. And our building is structurally built in a way where it takes you 10 minutes, proper 10 minutes, a proper 7 to 8 minutes to go into the garage to pick up your car, because you have to take the elevator down. And first of all, you have to go to the elevator, then you have to take the elevator down. You have to walk to another elevator, which takes another 3-4 minutes to be there. Then you have to take the elevator up, and then you have to find your car, and then you have to go 3, 4, 5 levels, depending where you find a parking space, down until you are out. So all in all, it takes him 10 minutes to be even outside of the garage, like leaving the apartment and until he's out of the garage. It takes him proper 10 minutes. And then it's a 25 minutes to 30 minutes drive. So to cut that story short and stay on the topic, he has to put a lot of effort in order for us to live here, and he's commuting every day forth and back. And I work from home entirely, 100%, so I don't have that. Yet I felt like today I want to kind of acknowledge and I want him to feel seen, that I see the efforts that he puts in, because it's a lot to commute half an hour, and sometimes it's even 40 minutes when the traffic is really heavy. So I was texting him, I was thanking him. I said, I really see the effort that you put in order for me to live in such a beautiful place, because we could have moved inland, not close to the water, and it would take him maybe 10 minutes. So I just wanted to put my attention on his efforts that he puts in every single day from Monday till Friday without ever complaining about it. And obviously he texted back, he's saying, thank you, that's the least I can do for you. So that was just an example where I was like, I'll bring that into our episode today to explain you how I was doing it just right now, and also how little I sometimes see my husband's efforts. So, and that leads me now into kind of go a little bit into the definition. What does feeling seen actually mean? Because feeling seen is not just about attention. It's not someone looking at you or listening politely. Feeling seen is when someone recognizes your inner experience, your efforts, your emotions, for example, your perspective or your intention, and can reflect that back to you and make you feel more understood. And there's a big difference between, okay, yeah, I hear you and I understand why this matters to you. Because we often, and I feel I am guilty myself sometimes. I say to people, yeah, I hear you. But do I really hear them, or am I just using an empty phrase? Unfortunately, it's sometimes the empty phrase I'm using. And this sentence, I understand why this matters to you. And then dot blank silence, right? It's not like, I understand why this matters to you, and here's a solution, or here is where you can do better. I mean, that would be not good. But this sentence, I really like this. I understand why this matters to you. And just silence. Just letting that land on the other person, and with the intention focus, just, being present with this other person and not needing to fix them, bring a solution. It's just about sometimes shutting our mouth. And I feel when someone does to me, it's like these moments of silence and I feel so heard and seen are the most precious ever. And yeah, it's when you feel seen, something inside of you just settles because you stop pushing yourself, you stop over explaining, you kind of relax, you find you find safety in this conversation, in this relationship. And because at a very human level, being seen confirms something truly, truly powerful. And that is, I exist here and I matter here. And that sounds so simple, but if you slow it down, that in that moment between you and this other person that sees you, that hears you, that does not want to rush in this conversation, that doesn't want to provide a solution and prove to you how great they are, that matters. That moment of like, hey, I exist here and I matter. I matter. And that that need doesn't disappear as you grow. And here's an important truth most people miss. And I want to say something important here because this topic of feeling seen or feeling more heard in conversation relationships gets often very oversimplified. Sometimes you only see yourself more clearly because someone else sees you. That is absolutely the reality. Like with my bestie Simone, we are voice noting forth and back every day. We send each other voice notes and over voice notes, and it is so important to sometimes talk about my experiences in that voice note because I know that she will listen to me, and talking to her and explaining everything to her gives me clarity. And I'm sure you had probably moments where someone reflected something back to you and suddenly everything made sense. You understood your own feelings better through that interaction with that very person. And that is how we as humans actually grow. We discover parts of ourselves through relationships. That's why, for example, if you go now into a cave and meditate and are cut off from civilization, you're not growing because, relationships are such a catalyst because, we discover parts in ourselves through relationships, through relating to others, very often in a painful way. Sometimes relationships are the very things that hurt us the most, but that's a different topic. And that is super, super important. So relationships are so important to kind of relate back to ourselves. And so this isn't about becoming hyper independent and saying, I don't need anyone to see me. Because you do. We all do. And there is out there on social media sometimes this kind of notion of like, you need to be more self-reliant and, rely less on other people, and you need to validate and feel yourself more seen through your own lens. And yes, but here's where it gets tricky. Of course, because that is, the whole self-reliance part is one thing, but it's not black and white. We often need someone else, as I said before. But on the other hand, so that's not a black and white thing. It's neither nor. It's neither you validate yourself, or not validate, but you feeling yourself more seen within yourself, versus you need to get that through relating to somebody else, or someone needs to see you in order for you to see yourself. So it's not a black and white thing, obviously. It's more or less, it should be more a hybrid version, because here's where it gets tricky. If you rely only on other people to reflect back to you, your kind of sense of self starts depending how others respond. And here is where relationships sometimes are so painful, because other people's reactions are often unconscious, or are more about themselves, or they have a set of behavior that's hurting us, but it's good in a way for them, or they couldn't do better at that moment. And of course, then every conversation is a high stake moment when we rely on other people. Because if someone misunderstands you, you will feel invisible. And people are prone to misunderstanding each other. I misunderstand my bestie, my husband, often because I'm in my own world, or see things just from my lens, and I'm not relating to them in a way. Or if someone doesn't respond the way you were hoping, you start questioning yourself. So the healthiest place, and this is always what I'm teaching also my clients, and that's what I want to also tell you, is the truth and the healthiest place to live is somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. So neither on just see yourself first, versus on the other side of the spectrum, be seen by others. It's a great middle ground, which is the middle of the spectrum. So you start learning how to recognize yourself, and that allows at the same time others to meet you also more deeply. And feeling seen isn't something one person gives you. It's something created between two people. And also, you obviously recognize yourself and feel more seen. And that brings me why you often don't feel seen in relationships or in conversations. Here's the hard part. Many times you don't feel seen because you're not fully showing yourself. So I know when I tell, for example, my bestie something, and I'm not coming with the full truth, because sometimes I'm telling her things I would have never told anybody. I wouldn't even journal about it. Like, it's the deepest secrets of my psyche. And often it's about how I'm envious or jealous of somebody else. And I know the moment I don't go there, I'm not fully revealing myself to her, how I'm not feeling seen. Because obviously, we have done a conversation. She responds back to my voice note later on. And it's not about how she responds or what she says or what she doesn't say. It's about like, I haven't told her the full truth. She cannot fully see me because she doesn't know the full truth. I'm not revealing something to her. And it's also the same when you soften your emotions. When you're, for example, when I'm not saying that I'm jealous, because sometimes I feel like, gosh, am I such a jealous piece of person, And I have to acknowledge that jealousy is an emotion that I still have so much within me, because for 30 plus years, I have been suppressing it. I know how ugly it is to be jealous of someone. And it's something that I kind of learned in childhood. I saw adults being truly jealous and doing things in a bad way out of it. So, jealousy has been a core emotion in me that I grappled with, that I always repressed, that I hated about myself. And I remember being in my teens and like, I am so jealous and it's something so hideous, so ugly about myself. So then I soften my emotions. I downplay what my experience is or what I need. And obviously, I avoid saying what really matters because I don't want to be seen as too much, too emotional, too difficult, or too jealous, right? So, and then you walk away, or I walk away and think, they don't get me, or they don't really know what I mean because I haven't revealed something deeply vulnerable to them. But people can only connect with the version of you that is actually present. So if I cut off half of my story because I don't want to reveal that I actually it's a jealousy that's driving me to have this judgment or those thoughts about a person, then I'm showing just a filtered version of myself. That's also the version, for example, Simone, my bestie, will respond to. And a filtered version. This is so gross. I hate when I filter myself. I hate it. I loathe myself when I do that. And that's why I sometimes go back to the voice to Simone and say, hey, you know what? It's about jealousy. I haven't revealed that to you because I wasn't ready to. And that's fine. Because sometimes I'm not ready yet in that moment to reveal it. It takes me some time to feel like, oh my God, I don't like it that I filter myself. And I don't like how she responds to me because she responds to that filtered version of me. And this happens so quietly that you often don't even notice you are doing. I am aware when I'm doing it, but, sometimes we are not. And that's also just humans. And how this shows up in conversation is just think about how often you say to someone that you are fine or that you're okay when you're absolutely not. We all do it. I do it. You do it. It's just like sometimes we just don't want to bother people, right? And sometimes you might use jokes instead of saying the real thing, or you talk about something lightly when actually it matters really, really deeply to you. And those moments train your relationships. So I want you to acknowledge that and listen really closely. That's how you train your relationships, because people unconsciously learn how deep they can go with you. If you stay on the surface, the conversations stay on the surface. And that's not because the person that you're talking to does not care, but because you're signaling what feels more safe. And the reason I bring this up as a podcast episode is because being seen is so important. And here is why. When you consistently feel unseen, something starts happening internally. You start to doubt your own experience. You question whether your emotions are valid. For example, I question myself that if jealousy is valid and if that is even good to feel, or, I shouldn't feel this way. So, this all starts to kind of bubble in your brain, and you start over explaining yourself sometimes because you also don't want to go. For example, I don't want to talk about me being jealous, so I'm over explaining that situation to kind of compensate for not being vulnerable enough and showing the real side in me. And that feels so icky because I still know it's not the truth. Or you withdraw altogether. So I'm not even talking to my bestie about this topic because I feel like I don't want to go there. And over time, your inner voice then gets quieter. And that is where I help my clients so often to strengthen this inner voice. And in order to do that, we have to feel seen, either with somebody we feel safe with, or we start seeing ourselves. Because when you feel seen, even briefly, you obviously feel so much stronger. You feel clearer within yourself. You are more yourself, which is such an easy sentence to say, but it has such an impact. It's like your nervous system says, okay, I'm safe here. That's great. And that changes how you show up everywhere else or anywhere else. So let's make this a little bit more practical. How can you start feel more seen? So first of all, I always start within yourself first, because I think that is a practice worth practicing over and over, because everything starts with you. Everything starts with me. So the first step is obviously noticing yourself first. So before I expect someone else to understand me, I often just pause and ask myself, what am I actually feeling right now? Because when I ask these questions my clients, they don't know often. They say, I don't know. And of course they know, but they forgot how to just sit with that sensation in the body and then label this. And I'm not talking about like saying what sounds good or what's convenient, but what's true. So me labeling and sitting with that feeling of jealousy and saying, yeah, I feel jealous. And that alone, if I say so without judging myself, that naming of that emotion already internally changes my energy. So if you, for example, feel sad because someone said something or didn't have the response that you wanted them to have, what is it that you feel? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Are you disappointed? Because very often we cannot really sit with disappointment or with sadness or with anger because we don't feel safe with this emotion. We think like, oh my God, if I feel angry or disappointed, my whole day goes down the drain, or I become a bad person, or I might say something that I shouldn't say, or this, very important, what most people think is this emotion will completely consume me and I will be so stuck in that I will never get out of here, which is obviously not true. And in a conversation, in a relationship with somebody, speak more directly. Because, people cannot respond to what you're hinting at. And I know, especially women in relationships with our partners, we do that often. And we hope that they notice, but they don't. So, or they misunderstand something, or they think we're fine anyway. So instead of hoping someone notices what you're trying to say, just let them know this topic, you listening to me really matters to me. Or I feel overlooked right now. And being clear is a guarantor to stay away or steer away from drama. Because the more clear you are with someone, the more the other person gets what you are at, and there is no drama. But the second guessing and not letting the other person in what you are trying to express or what you need or what's going on within you, that actually, that creates drama, that creates misunderstanding, even more disappointments, frustration on the other person's end because they somehow don't get you and you're not being clear. So be direct, be honest. And then also something super important is, not shrinking. Because I don't know how it is about you, but I know that I always, in the past, tried to be very easygoing. I wanted to be low maintenance, like not too emotional, because I'm very emotional, but not too emotional. And all those things are making me shrink and making me less visible. So when you talk, take your time when you speak. Finish the thoughts that you have. Don't leave out certain thoughts or certain needs or certain emotions. let yourself be felt from the other person. Let yourself be seen what's within you and that you are expressing. You don't have to express yourself the most eloquent. You can be stuttering. You can correct what you just said. While you say it, you can reiterate, or, when you get more clarity while you're speaking, things can change, but name it and let yourself be seen, and let your presence and your inner world be seen. And also at the same time, allow some discomfort. That is so important, because that's what I teach my clients from the get-go is, if you feel discomfort by doing something differently, by sharing a need, by letting yourself be seen as angry, disappointed, whatnot, discomfort will come up, because your brain has no clue what's happening right now when you're doing something you avoided for 30, 40, 20 plus years. And being seen always involves a little risk, because being visible means someone also might not fully get you. So there's always a risk. There's a risk because you're doing something you've never done. You don't know how they will react to it, right? Sometimes we start to express ourselves, start to make ourselves more seen, and it's not immediately accepted. Sometimes because we then realize that this person or this relationship has to change. Maybe, that relationship is no longer a good relationship for you to have in your life, or maybe not to that extent that you had it, because you are making yourself more seen, and that is a space that's not given by you, by the other person. So maybe the relationship is not right anymore. You outgrow relationships, which is absolutely normal. We don't have to have people around us that we outgrow. We can gently, compassionately let them go without drama. But maybe not in a way of cutting them loose from one day to the other, but kind of give more space between you and the other person. And on the other hand, also means that that person just doesn't get you. Not because they're a bad person or their relationship, you outgrew their relationship, but because, sometimes we just don't get the other person. Sometimes the other person doesn't have the best day. Maybe they are struggling with something right now. Maybe they have something they are absolutely grappling with. And sometimes I just also don't get all of my clients all the time. It's just, I'm human. We have a cycle. We have phases in a cycle where we are more conscious, more aware. And then we have phases in our cycle where we are just completely self-conscious and, just don't get it. That's just life as a woman. I mean, we all know what I'm speaking here about. So that was a lot, but just to make it what I'm just explained to you more like the practical steps, because I think that is something I want to leave you with. And this is not a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 process to step 1, 2, 3, or 4, but more or less some of the things I want you to bear in mind. I want you to memorize, and maybe you use one first, right? Maybe, for example, in a relationship, in a conversation, you notice an emotion, you notice a need. Even if you're maybe not addressing it right now, you know it. Oh, I have that need. And that is already so great. You don't know how many people run around in this world and have no clue what they need, or they have no clue what they are actually feeling. They can't even label that. And this is not because they are emotionally immature or not intelligent enough. It's just because, we are so cut off from feeling deeply and all this emotional kind of how we deal with our inner world. So sometimes, even myself, I had trouble sometimes to name an emotion in the past because I wasn't used to this. So notice the one thing in yourself first, and then try to speak more directly. Say what matters to you. Say that you might have felt a little overlooked or not heard. You can just speak honestly. and be truthful about it versus filtering yourself, leaving out certain things. And I guarantee you, that steers away the drama. Because clarity is the antidote to drama. Drama is when things are ambiguous, when we are not speaking directly. And I also don't mean direct being harsh, but direct with compassion to yourself, towards yourself, and towards the other person. And another thing that I mentioned before is don't shrink. Stop doing this. Don't try to be low maintenance. Don't try to not be emotional, because come on, what's the point? You can be emotional. Emotional doesn't mean you're being dramatic. Because I know we women often hear, you are so dramatic. Even in my marriage, I heard that sometimes, until that point where I taught my husband that, this being dramatic is something he learned. This is not something that, we inherently think about each other. It's just where I feel when women have emotions and men just don't really know how to hold it or what to do with it, because obviously there's something to fix, they feel, and then they got overwhelmed, then they might resort to saying, oh, you're so dramatic. But that's something that feels so icky and gross, because that's not how we feel hurt, right? So don't think you're too emotional, because that also makes you help not shrink yourself or be someone else who you're not at the moment. And then make sure when discomfort arises, this is not because you're doing something wrong. It's just because it's new to you. Your brain hasn't really made neural pathways of what's happening next, because obviously our brain likes to predict, and suddenly you do something that it cannot predict what's happening, because we never know how the other person reacts. But honestly, you soon will find out who can hold you, who can really see you for who you are, and who cannot. And obviously, try to make yourself feel more seen with a person who can, because that will help you see yourself as well. And at the same time, always start with yourself first. Don't expect always the other person to really get you. Try to be the person yourself who can understand you. And so now, coming to the end of this episode, I want you to think about this. Where in your relationships are you hoping someone will see you while you're still hiding parts of yourself? Because obviously, I know when I was hiding parts in myself, I was hoping for the other person to see it, to get it. But that is not fair either, in a way. And yeah, where have you experienced moments where someone truly seeing you helped you understand yourself more deeply? Because that is also so precious. You learn yourself through others, basically. And you also have to be willing to show yourself. So today, try one small thing of those things I mentioned today. Maybe in a conversation, you can say what you really feel. You can do so clearly, more calmly, very honestly, and just observe what's changing. Because, again, feeling seen is not about forcing attention or trying to make you understood by somebody. It's about being willing to be visible. And obviously, when you start doing so, even in those small increments, even if it's just 1% today, 5% today, the relationships, those conversations will start to feel different. And that is something, it's always so great if we take minor steps to see what's happening, what's changing. So we are now on the 44 mark of the podcast episode. I don't want to keep it too long, because obviously it was a lot, I guess, to convey to you. And I hope that episode really resonated with you and you could take something away from it, whatever that was. I hope it's helping you. You can process this now consciously or subconsciously. And, maybe in the next conversation you can make yourself feel seen. And or the other way, you make someone else more seen today. So my love, go out there, be seen, and I will see you next week. And I wish you all the best. And thanks for joining me today. I love having you here. Thank you. Bye.